Hello and welcome to another FSX video with flight level 180. Today we're going to learn how to auto-land the Embraer 175 and 195 regional jets from FeelThere. These add-ons can be purchased on Steam. This is a pretty excellent airplane. It has some pretty amazing systems that such as this Autoland system that are above and beyond, and it's a moderately advanced airplane for you to learn how to work these systems. So let's jump right into learning how to Autoland. Now, we are currently flying towards runway 35 left at Sao Paulo Airport in Brazil, the home of Embraer, and we are, we're 65 nautical miles from the airport. We're at about 14,600 in a gradual descent, and we're pretty shortly going to turn in towards the airport. Now, let's go ahead and go through the requirements to set up Autoland. There are a lot of things you have to have set up or the system will not work. So let's go through those. I'm going to go through about half of those, and then we'll go through the rest as we descend towards the runway. First thing you want to do is set the auto brake. So you use the center mouse button to slide this over to your preferred setting. It's a pretty short runway, so I'm going to set it for medium. Now the next thing you want to do is set your ILS radios. And that is maybe one of the trickier things to do. So let me show you how to do that. So the best way to do that is you go to World Map in FSX. Here's our airplane. And if you look here, here's our destination airport. So I'm going to go ahead and click that. I'm going to double click on airport, and there's three pieces of information that are critical here. And when you're doing this, you want to write these down. First thing is we're landing on 35 left, so we need the ILS frequency, which is 110.1. Second thing we need is the bearing of the runway. So it's 348 degrees. This is the runway. We need to write that down. And the third thing you need is the elevation of the airport, which is 2631. So let's go ahead and get the airplane configured with that information in mind. So let's go to the nav radio, and to do that you hit Shift 3, which brings up the FMS or FMC, and then you click on the radio button. And then we're going to need to enter the frequency for the ILS into nav 1 and nav 2. 110.1, click, 110.1, click. Now we have it entered on both sides. You can't do it on just one, you have to do it on both sides. Let's go back to flight plan. And let's turn this off for a second. Now, we know the airport is 2631. I like to acquire the ILS about 3,000 feet above ground level, above airport level, to give the airplane time to settle into the path and for me to be able to verify that everything is working as it should. So let's go ahead and set our altitude to about 20, 30, 50, 5,200 feet. So let's do that. So I'm going to use the altitude select. I'm clicking with the right mouse button to 5,200. Let's go to 5,300 feet. So that is where we're going to intercept the ILS and start our descent. Now, looking here, you can tell this is magenta, so the FMS is controlling our speed. We're almost at 10,000 feet, so let's go ahead and start decelerating. Now the way to do that, you can see this little triangle is pointed to FMS. If you click here, it'll pop over to manual mode. This turns blue, and then we can use our right mouse button to click down to 250 knots, and the airplane should start slowing down, which it is. So that looks good. Now, how do we get lined up with a runway? And this is where the tricks come into play that I think you'll find useful at almost every single airport. So let me show you how to figure that out. If we go to World Map, you can notice here, let's try to zoom in a little bit. If you notice here, this is our runway right there. We're going to be flying in on this course. Well, how convenient is that? There's two navigation markers right where we need to fly. So we're going to fly in like this and turn right and fly right over these markers in order to intercept the runway. Well, we can use this marker to navigate so we're approaching the airport directly on the correct bearing. So it's 200 kilohertz, so let's go ahead and enter that into our nav radio. So 200 kilohertz. We're going to hit Shift 3, radio, page 2 with next, and then we're going to hit 200 kilohertz, and we're going to enter it into ADF1. Now, let's turn this off. If you look here on this, we're going to pop this up. Now watch. I'm going to click this button, and that's going to turn on VOR1, which we're not in range of the LS yet, so there's nothing to see. But if you click ADF1, there is the bearing to that outer marker. Okay? So let's go ahead and figure out how to actually navigate there. So the first thing I'm going to go ahead and switch over to heading mode. So I'm going to keep the current course. I hit center click on this button to center my navigation bug. I'm going to hit heading. So now we're in heading mode. Now, to show we want to go ahead and change the course to the course of the runway, and this is one of the critical requirements for the Autoland system. So to do that, we know the course is 348 degrees, but we've got no course here. To see that, you can hit the pre button, and there we go. This line shows the course, which is 340 degrees currently. Let's change it to 348. And let's go over to and you have to do it on both sides. So we're going to do that for the Copilot too. So let's go to his course knob, 348. So it's 348 here, 348 there. We're cross-checked, all good. Now, if we look at this, our goal is to have this blue line here, which is pointing at the outer marker, be aligned with the course, so we're flying directly over that outer marker on the correct pathway for the runway. Okay? This is something you can use on almost any airport that has ILS. They typically have an outer and inner marker, and you can use this navigation trick to line yourself up perfectly. Now, let's get rid of the FMS. We're done with the FMS. We're flying out this way and coming this way. We're only going to use it for distances to the airport. So let's go ahead and switch into nav mode. So if we click this VL button, the red magenta lines disappear, and then we get the course for the runway, which is 348 degrees. Okay? So you can see here, these X's mean that we're still out of range of the ILS frequency, of the ILS, but as we start to get about 27, 28 nautical miles out, this will start to populate, and you'll see how we are relative to the actual path into the airport. Now, you can notice, I don't know if you've noticed, but this is slowly creeping down. As we get closer, it's going to accelerate. And we're going to want to take and start turning into this course when it's almost onto this line. And we want to be careful not to fly too aggressively to the left, because it'll start coming down pretty fast. So let's go another 10 degrees right. There we go. Airplane is adjusting. And so we are still at 250 knots. So let's go ahead and start bringing that down. We're 35 nautical miles. Let's come down to 220 knots. I find this airplane, it tends to be very fast. It doesn't slow down very quickly, so you really need to be ahead of things. You always have the speed brakes, and to activate those, you just hit the slash key. And if you watch here, oops, that was the wrong key. There we go. So you can see the speed brakes coming up, but we're going to leave them down for now. Okay. We are looking good. We're at 236 knots. We're at 8,700 feet. We're 33 nautical miles out. Let's go ahead and zoom in a little bit here. If you use the mouse button, when this turns into brackets, you can actually change that. So you can see we're getting closer and closer. So as soon as that's right about there, you're going to start seeing that the ILS course, the horizontal component of the ILS course, start coming in. And we're pretty close. We're 4 nautical miles from actually picking up that signal. So let's start turning a little more to the right. Speed is coming down nicely. And you actually, this bottom button here allows you to VOR2, ADF2 if we had the ADF frequency set for a different location, FMS, and so we can leave it on VOR2 if we want, and that will actually show the bearing to the airport, to the ILS, but we don't really need that. It's not going to be necessary. So we are now 30 nautical miles. We should see in another 10 or 15 seconds, we're going to start hearing the beeping of the ILS frequency, the Morse code. and we're going to see the horizontal component start showing up here. We won't see the glide slope yet. The glide slope, you won't see that until you're actually close to the airport. So this will stay as an X while this one will disappear. The X will disappear. But we don't need the horizontal component yet. We're going to intercept at 5,300 feet. We're coming down gradually to 5,300 feet. We're 28 nautical miles out. Our speed is good. Okay, we are 27 nautical miles. Let's make sure our frequency is correct. Shift 3, go to the previous page, 110.1, 110.1, that matches. So we're looking good. I'm a little surprised we haven't picked up the ILS yet. Ah, there we go. You see that just pop up right there? And as we get closer, when that gets to about here, you're going to see that start coming in, and we should be able to capture it. Now, one thing I really like about the FeelThere's is unlike some of the other add-ons, that's the alert to tell us we're 1,000 feet from our programmed altitude. The FeelThere is excellent at acquiring the glide path and the localizer. If you were to hit APP now, it would just hook right onto it and be excellent. It would just grab it perfectly. So we don't need to do that. Let's go ahead and slide a little bit more to the right. We don't need to do that. We're going to wait till it's coming in. But we could actually hit it now and we have no problems intercepting that course. Now, talking about the PREV mode, if we had a FMS course that intercepted the ILS, we could use PREV, which would do the exact same thing as the approach mode, where when we intercepted the localizer, it would go ahead and automatically acquire it. But given there's no standard approach that I could find that actually took you onto the ILS approach, at least in FSX, that there was we couldn't actually do that. So we're gonna have to do things manually. I have done another video with a lot of depth on this airplane where we use the standard approach in PREV mode all the way down. So if you're interested in seeing that, you should check that out. Now here comes the horizontal guidance, the lateral guidance. So we can go ahead and hit APP mode, and you'll see the airplane will start turning to the right to capture that horizontal component. Looking good. Now that we're getting closer, we are 20 nautical miles out. Let's bring our speed down to 200 knots, and we can start getting some flaps in. And let's bring this in a little bit. 12.5 nautical miles. And you notice we just picked up the glide slope. We are below it. So as soon as that starts coming down, we're going to drop our gear and start more aggressively slowing down. Now, if you look outside, I've gone ahead and set the conditions for a complete whiteout. You can't see anything. And we are actually going to come out about 50 feet above the runway, and which would be an illegal landing. If we were doing this in real life, you really need to be able to see the landing at your minimums, which are 200 feet. You can see that set on the radar altimeter. But just for illustration purposes, to see how well this auto landing works, I'm going to go ahead and keep it at, let's go ahead and slow down to 180. I'm going to go ahead and keep it at, and give it another notch of flaps. I'm going to go ahead and leave it like that. I think you'll find it pretty impressive. So I just hit F7 to bring down a notch of flaps to start bringing our speed down a little bit. You can notice we're perfectly on the horizontal component, even though we have some turbulence here. Still don't have the vertical component we don't have the glide slope yet, so we're waiting for that. Let's go ahead and give her another notch of flaps. Now, one other thing you need to have set, you have to have the radar altimeter the same and over 60 feet on both sides. And we have it at 200 both sides, so that we're good there. And you have to have the flaps set to 5. Now, if you can see here, it says Autoland 1 now. So we are configured for Autoland, but it hasn't, as soon as it turns green, that means we've met the conditions. So it's not green yet because we don't have flaps 5. Okay, so you can see we are now, as I was telling you, the outer marker and the course to the runway are perfectly aligned. So that shows you that you can use that tool very effectively. Now I'm going to set my heading to runway heading, so if we need to go around, we've got that available. Let's go ahead and bring our speed down a little bit so we can go a little more flaps. You can see that we still have not acquired the glide slope. We're 6 nautical miles out. I'm sorry, 11 nautical miles out. Generally looking good. Now, you're going to notice as we go over that outer marker, this pointer is it's pointing at it now, and when we fly over it, it's going to slide around and point back behind us because we go over it. So that's a nice little cue to show us that we've passed over the outer marker. And I'm not sure why this particular airport it doesn't work, but some outer markers, there comes the glide slope. It will beep when you have the outer marker audio turned on. So let's go ahead and drop our gear. Notice the gear is coming down. Always want to keep an eye on that to make sure you get full gear. And we have 3 green, so we're in good shape. So we are now 9 nautical miles. And we should be over that outer marker very shortly. Let's go ahead and get another notch. Let's go flaps 3. Let's bring our speed down a little bit. Let's go to 160. And our goal is really to be pretty shortly, about 5 nautical miles out, I want to be at my V approach speed, which is here. And we're going to need more flaps for that. And when we're about 2 nautical miles out, I really want to start getting down to our VREF, which is down here. And you can see we're completely whited out still. There's nothing to see here, so we are 100% on instruments. So keep your head down, keep your eye on the instruments. There's no reason to look outside the cockpit or you're just going to get yourself disoriented. Now look there. You notice we're coming very, very close to that outer marker and it's starting to do its spin. There it goes. We're crossing right over it. Boom. Now it's behind us. All good. So let's go ahead and turn off that. We don't need that on there. Okay. So we are 4.5 nautical miles out. Let's get down to our correct speed. So we want to be 100 and we need more flaps. So let's go flaps 5. So F7 to flaps 4, F7 to flaps 5. Coming down to flaps 5, you can see the little arrow indicating where it's going to be. And you notice here, once we go to flaps 5, it goes Autoland green. So now we're fully in Autoland mode. And we are 3.4 nautical miles out. We are 1,300 feet above the ground. We're perfectly on the vertical component, perfectly on the horizontal component. So we are looking perfect. Now I want to take and bring my speed down a little bit to 128, which is our VREF speed. And hopefully we can get this airplane slowed down enough that we can land at the correct VREF speed, or maybe slightly above. Now we're a little above, little below the glide slope, and we hope the airplane corrects that. And that's why you really want to be stable and let these things sort themselves out pretty far in advance. So we're 880 feet, still got nothing. Nothing at all. So this is where you're praying that your Autoland system works correctly. 135 knots, speed's coming down, flaps 5, gear is down, auto brakes are on. We are ready to go. Now when we land, we're going to take and go into reverse thrust. At this point, you definitely want to have your throttle all the way off. So 320. Okay, so this is about the point where legally we go around, but we're just going to go ahead and continue down. We're at 130 feet, 110 feet, 100 feet. Boom, there's the runway. Now it's flaring automatically right on the center line. I'm hitting F2 a couple times and holding it down to get reverse thrusters on. You can see it's on. Autopilot is off. And when we hit 80 knots, the brakes are going to turn off. And we can go ahead and start using our own brakes. And that's how it's done. It's essentially a perfect landing from an incredibly optimized setup here. It's pretty nice. I think FeelThere did a very nice job on this. There's some, if you look at my other, you should look at my other document if you're interested in learning more about this airplane. There's some issues with the manual. There's a great manual, but there's some pretty significant issues with it. But I do go through those in the manual and talk to you about it. So I hope that was interesting and you learned something from that. I hope you can follow along and make your own ILS approaches. And please subscribe and give positive comments if you want anything else. If you want me to walk through holds or some of the other advanced features on this plane, just leave me a note. And I hope that helped you. And looking forward to seeing you on the next video.